Al Capone wasn't just a gangster. He was a product of a system that pretended economics didn't exist. A businessman operating inside one of the most profitable industries in American history. An industry created not by entrepreneurship, but by policy. By lawmakers who believed morality could override markets. Prohibition didn't simply outlaw alcohol. It manufactured scarcity. It deleted every legal competitor. And it handed the keys of an entire supply chain to whoever was bold enough, ruthless enough, or organized enough to claim it. And when you create a billion-dollar market overnight, someone will fill it, every time, without exception. The 18th Amendment of 1920 wasn't just a law. It was an economic experiment forced on an unwilling country. And America became a laboratory where demand refused to die. And crime learned how to scale. The government promised a moral rebirth, a cleaner society, a nobler nation. But they forgot the oldest rule in the book. You cannot legislate human desire. You cannot outlaw appetite. You can only change who profits from it. Before Prohibition, alcohol was ordinary. Beer was cheap. Whiskey was everywhere. Wine was a household staple. It was culture, tradition, and identity. After Prohibition, those same bottles became gold. Every risk became a markup. Every bribe became a tax. Every smuggler became an entrepreneur. And every consumer, rich or poor, kept buying. Into this furnace walked a young man from Brooklyn. Born to immigrant parents, raised on the margins of society. Alphonse Capone. He didn't create the demand. He didn't write the law. He simply understood the math. Chicago was a perfect storm. A city exploding with industry, immigrants, poverty, hope, and corruption deep enough to swallow entire institutions whole. Capone saw what everyone else refused to see. Prohibition wasn't closing doors. It was opening them. Not for moral crusaders, but for businessmen with no fear of illegality. And so he built his empire. Not like a street gang, but like a corporation. Vertical integration before textbooks coined the term. Supply chain control decades before Wall Street learned the phrase. Brand management long before marketing agencies existed. He owned breweries, distilleries, transportation networks, distribution routes. His drivers weren't thugs. They were logistics operators. His bribed officials weren't bribed. They were cost of doing business. His speakeasies weren't bars. They were franchises. In today's dollars, his revenue surpassed $1.5 billion. But revenue was only the surface. What made Capone powerful was his understanding of legitimacy. He laundered money through restaurants, nightclubs, dry cleaners, grocery stores, anything with cash flow. To the public, he wasn't a criminal. He was a provider, a protector, sometimes even a benefactor. In neighborhoods abandoned by the state, he was the state. But the real genius wasn't the violence. It was the risk management. Capone knew prohibition was temporary. He knew policy was fragile. He knew lawmakers could erase his profits with a single signature. And so he diversified. Gambling, prostitution, loan sharking, protection rackets. Capone built a portfolio. But alcohol was different. Alcohol was the oil boom of the 1920s. Clean, simple, predictable, and immortal in its demand. What Prohibition accidentally created was a lesson in how markets behave under pressure. A lesson still relevant today. Because Prohibition didn't fail morally. It failed mathematically. Crime didn't rise because criminals were bold. Crime rose because profit was exponential. Every regulation increased margins. Every police raid increased prices. Every risk created more reward. This is the part history classes never teach. The part politicians pretend not to understand. The part economists whisper. Artificial scarcity is the most profitable market on earth. Whenever governments restrict supply, those restrictions create opportunity. For someone, somewhere, always. It happened with alcohol. It happened with cannabis. It happened with crypto. It's happening right now with sanctioned oil, rare earth minerals, microchips, carbon credits, energy policy, even data. Capone was not an anomaly. He was the blueprint. When law and demand clash, markets don't disappear. They mutate. And the people who spot these mutations first become rich, powerful, and nearly untouchable. Until the day the system shifts again. Capone fell not because he made mistakes, but because the environment changed. Public opinion collapsed. The Great Depression drained the treasury. And suddenly, tax revenue mattered more than morality. Within 3 years, the government reversed course. Prohibition was repealed. Legal breweries returned. Prices crashed. And Capone's empire vanished like smoke. The criminal economy became taxable income. The black market became a regulated industry. And America pretended the last 13 years never happened. But the lesson remained. When you create scarcity, you create opportunity. When you ignore demand, you empower the people who don't. The same mechanics run today's world. The same patterns repeat. Look at the early days of Bitcoin. High risk, no regulation, insane profit margins, a new class of digital aristocrats emerging from code. Look at cannabis. Illegal dealers becoming obsolete overnight, replaced by corporate brands and government tax stamps. Look at energy. Countries under sanctions selling oil in complex shadow networks. Ships turning off GPS. Companies hiding ownership through shell entities. Margins exploding because risk has a price tag. Look at the microchip wars. One export restriction, and suddenly the world's most valuable commodity is invisible, silent, but worth billions. Capone understood all of this a century before any of it entered modern vocabulary. He understood supply, demand, risk, scarcity, policy, and timing. He understood that profit is born in the gap between what the law imagines and what people actually do. That's the real financial education. The one you never get in school. The one history hides behind morality plays. The one politicians hope you never see. Because once you understand it, you start seeing the world differently. You see black markets not as crime, but as in regulated economics. You see regulation not as control, but as opportunity. You see scarcity not as limitation, but as a signal. Capone didn't build an empire from alcohol. He built it from understanding. If you spot the gap early, you profit. If you don't, you pay those who did. History doesn't repeat, but patterns do. And the people who learn them shape the future. If this changed your perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and we're just getting started.